Stories Between Us anthology, where Black queer men's lives, love, and tension take center stage. Lionel Harper had the kind of face that made people stop mid-sentence and forget what they were talking about, which was deeply unfair, considering he was also a firefighter built like someone who did push-ups during commercial breaks for fun. He wasn't trying to be anyone's fantasy. He just moved through the world with the confidence of a man who knew he looked good in suspenders. And unfortunately for everyone around him, especially the men who couldn't stop staring, he also loved attention almost as much as he loved running into burning buildings. His shifts always started the same way. A big stretch, a cocky smile, and a silent prayer that today's chaos would be the good kind. He never wished for real danger, just the kind of excitement that made a story worth telling. And Lionel collected stories the way some people collected vintage sneakers. Proudly, recklessly, and with absolutely no shame. The morning of his first disaster date began with a call to a luxury apartment complex where a bachelor party had set off indoor fireworks in the living room. Smoke poured from the windows. Alarms screamed through the hallway. And Lionel, helmet crooked, grin already forming, rushed in like he was auditioning for a calendar shoot. Inside, he found a room full of half-drunk men in matching silk shirts arguing over who lit the wrong fuse. And standing in front of them, looking like a magazine ad for expensive heartbreak, was Lionel's former boyfriend. The moment their eyes met, the temperature in the room changed. And it wasn't because of the smoke. His former boyfriend, Evan, tall, smug, unreasonably handsome, ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair and said, "Of course, you would show up the one day I'm trying to have a peaceful morning." Lionel didn't even blink. "You call this peaceful?" he said, stepping over a charred coffee table like it was a minor inconvenience. "It smells like somebody's trust fund caught on fire." Evan rolled his eyes, but his mouth twitched like he was trying not to smile. Every guy at the party whispered some variation of, "Oh my God, are they about to start something?" Because the tension between Lionel and his former boyfriend wasn't subtle. It was loud, bright, and messy enough that even the fire seemed to burn a little quieter just to watch. Jordan, Lionel's straight co-worker and long-suffering wingman, nudged him. "Dude," he whispered, "your ex-boyfriend is staring at you like he wants to fight you or kiss you. Can you tell him to pick a lane?" Lionel shrugged. "I don't control his impulses. I'm just the inspiration." Jordan stared at him like he needed therapy. Once the flames were contained, the apartment aired out, and the bachelor party received the stern lecture they absolutely deserved. Evan tried to act uninterested, leaning against a column like a man who had rehearsed, looking unbothered in multiple mirrors. But when Lionel walked by, Evan's voice dropped low enough for only Lionel to hear. "You still love dramatic entrances, don't you?" Lionel smirked. "Only when there's an audience." "And you think I'm not an audience?" Evan asked, eyes dragging slowly over him. Lionel laughed. "Oh, sweetheart, you're the whole theater." Jordan loudly cleared his throat from across the room. "Hey, some of us are still here. Can y'all flirt in silence, or at least do it after we file the paperwork?" Lionel walked toward the exit, waving Evan off like he hadn't just thrown gasoline on a 5-year-old flame. The bachelor party whispered. Evan stared. Jordan muttered prayers. And Lionel strutted out like chaos didn't cling to him like cologne. Back at the station, the day rolled straight into another incident. This time involving a very cute dog an irresponsible cat owner, and a third-floor fire escape where Lionel ended up shirtless because he didn't want to get ashes on his new uniform. His captain yelled, Jordan sighed, and a crowd of neighbors filmed him with their phones like he was the halftime show. Lionel didn't mind. He thrived on spectacle. He also thrived on the number being slipped into his pocket by the cat owner's shy little brother, who blushed so hard Lionel thought he might pass out. By sunset, Lionel had collected another story, another phone number, another near disaster, and another reason the station group chat banned the words Lionel, romance, and please don't do that again. He ended the night sitting on the firehouse steps, sweaty, exhausted, and satisfied in a chaotic way he had no intention of fixing. His phone buzzed. A message from Evan. Next time, try not to look so happy to see me. Lionel smirked at the screen. I'll try, no promises. And that naturally was how one firefighter accidentally set the tone for an entire marathon of messy, sexy, chaotic adventures. Because with Lionel Harper, the fires were never the problem. Everything else was. Lionel Harper was having a good day. Too good, in fact. The sky was clear, the schedule was light, and nobody had accidentally set their kitchen on fire while trying to fry something they shouldn't fry. That alone should have been a warning sign, because Lionel didn't trust days where nothing exploded. Still, he lounged on the firehouse couch like a man enjoying a luxury spa, one boot dangling off his foot, his shirt half unbuttoned because, in his words, ventilation is essential for the soul. Jordan, walking by with a stack of training binders, took one look at him and sighed. Why are you half naked at noon? Lionel didn't even open his eyes. Body heat, Jordan. It's called science. Before Jordan could insult him, the station alarm buzzed. A low beat signal, the kind that meant not deadly, but definitely stupid. Lionel sat up, the spark in his chest already lighting. Please, he whispered, let this one have entertainment value. The call came from a quiet neighborhood where a homeowner reported suspicious smoke in the backyard. When their truck pulled up, Lionel hopped out expecting a grill, a faulty fire pit, maybe a teenager attempting TikTok pyrotechnics. What he found instead was a man standing shirtless behind a small shed, staring at a garden hose like it had personally betrayed him. Lionel stepped closer. Sir, what seems to be the problem? The man turned, and Lionel blinked. This man was gorgeous, ridiculously gorgeous. The type of gorgeous where even the sun seemed to lean in a little for a better look. Lean, brown-skinned, shaved head, gold chain, chest carved like he'd been sculpted by someone showing off. Oh, Lionel whispered. Science is really sciencing today. Jordan elbowed him. Focus. The man cleared his throat. Hi, so, my shed kind of smoldered. Why? Lionel asked, already sensing the answer was going to be stupid enough to make his entire day. The man lifted a guilty-looking cardboard box. I left a scented candle in there. It rolled. It lit some things. I panicked. Lionel nodded slowly. And your solution was to spray it with a garden hose? The man rubbed the back of his neck. Okay. Well, I panicked creatively. It did smell nice, Lionel thought. like a sexy outdoor spa mixed with poor decisions. Lionel walked into the shed, inspected the tiny burn patch, and confirmed that the fire was long dead and the danger was non-existent. But the homeowner was still hovering close behind him, clearly embarrassed and clearly flirting. "I never thought I'd meet a firefighter under these circumstances," he said, leaning against the doorway like a man auditioning for his own romance arc.
Lionel smirked. "If it helps. These circumstances are very on brand for my life."
Jordan coughed loudly, snapping Lionel out of whatever romantic daydream he was building and telling him to handle the stack of paperwork waiting in the truck. But Lionel wasn't listening. He was busy noticing the way the guy kept glancing at his chest like Lionel's unbuttoned uniform was distracting his ability to think. The man introduced himself as Amir, and by the time they left, he had not only apologized for the inconvenience, but also invited Lionel to come over for non-fire reasons next time. Jordan insisted that Lionel was allergic to self-control. Lionel countered that self-control was overrated. They returned to the station with Lionel humming, happy, smug, and already planning how he could casually drive past Amir's street tomorrow without making it look intentional. But that night, the real chaos came. Not from Amir, but from the station itself. A citywide blackout hit just as dinner was ending. Streetlights flickered out, alarms triggered everywhere, and the firehouse generator kicked in with a low, grumbling vibration. The captain told everyone to stay on alert for electrical fires, and suddenly the firehouse felt like a sleepover with high stakes.
Lionel loved it. The dorm-style bunks glowed in dim emergency lighting, and the team gathered in the common room with flashlights, emergency radios, and too much nervous energy. Jordan sat beside Lionel, flipping through a deck of cards.
"You ever notice we always get the weird calls when the power goes out?" Jordan asked. Lionel nodded. "I attract them. No argument there." And then, right on cue, the station phone rang.
The caller reported smoke, yelling, and possible domestic violence at a high-rise apartment downtown, which was very much Lionel's specialty. They geared up, rolled out, and arrived to find two men arguing on a balcony, while smoke wafted from a forgotten pan in the kitchen.
Lionel stepped inside, turned off the stove, and waved away the smoke with a towel. Meanwhile, the couple's argument spilled into the living room, full of dramatic gestures and accusations that sounded like they were rehearsing for a soap opera. Jordan whispered, "If they kiss, I'm retiring." Lionel whispered back, "If they break up, I'm leaving my number." Unfortunately, they kissed, cried, and apologized before Lionel could even offer them fire safety brochures, which he used as icebreakers. They thanked the firefighters profusely, then returned to their emotional reunion while Lionel looked mildly offended that the universe stole his chance at flirtation. By the time they made it back to the firehouse, the power was still out. The bunks were still glowing in emergency red, and everyone started settling in for a long, restless night. Lionel lay on his bunk, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Amir's smile, Evan's text, and the simple truth that chaos followed him like a devoted fan. Jordan rolled over in his bunk across the aisle, whispering Lionel's name just loud enough to poke at the quiet settling over the firehouse. Lionel turned his head, giving a half-awake "What's up?" without bothering to lift his gaze from the ceiling. Jordan studied him like a man bracing for disappointment, then asked, "You ever think about slowing down long enough to actually let someone be serious with you?" Lionel smiled up at the ceiling, The kind of smile that said he'd already rejected the idea before Jordan even asked. Not once, not ever. Jordan gave a half smile and turned back onto his pillow, while Lionel stretched out with the satisfied calm of a man who fully intended to stay chaotic forever. The gym was already a furnace by the time Lionel and Jordan pushed through the front doors. Smoke curled along the ceiling, alarms screamed, and a wave of half-dressed men rushed past them, sweaty bodies, towels barely staying on, voices cracking with panic and adrenaline. Lionel took it all in with a sharp, focused sweep of his eyes, the fire reflecting across his gear and his skin. Jordan shouted orders to the staff as Lionel sprinted deeper into the building. The heat spiked instantly, sauna level, almost blinding. Every treadmill, weight rack, and mirrored wall glowing under the haze. Lionel moved with the confidence of someone built to run into danger and look good doing it. "Last room on the left," a gym trainer yelled, pointing frantically through the smoke.
Lionel didn't hesitate. He rushed down the hall, kicked through a stuck door, and stepped into a locker room swallowed by flames licking along the top row of lockers. The tiles hissed under his boots, and from behind a bench someone coughed, low, shaky, holding on. Lionel hauled him up with one strong pull and dragged him out toward fresher air. Jordan cleared debris out of their path, shouting Lionel's name like reassurance and warning all at once. They burst into the parking lot as the fire finally lost its grip. Outside, the man leaned against the ambulance, catching his breath, sweat glistening along his collarbones. Lionel stood in front of him, gripping his shoulders to keep him steady. The guy looked up and froze.
"Wait," the man said softly, eyes widening. "It's you." Lionel blinked, recognition flickering in his face like someone flipping a switch. They had matched on a dating app 2 nights ago, shared a few messages. A quick spark. Lionel had meant to reply again before never did. Now, the man was here, shirtless, smoke-dusted, and staring at Lionel like the universe had just dropped him in his path. Lionel exhaled, stunned. "Did not expect to meet you like this."
The man smiled, slow, surprised, and very interested. "I'm not mad about it, though." Behind them, Jordan stood stiffly near the rig, trying to pretend he wasn't watching every inch of the moment unfolding. His expression said he'd seen enough, but he didn't move. Lionel noticed none of it.
The guy from the app stepped closer. Close enough that Lionel could smell the smoke on his skin and the clean, warm scent underneath it. They didn't talk long. Just a few lines, soft and loaded. The kind of conversation that carried the heat of the fire they just escaped. "You really came in there for me," the man said, voice full of relief and something bold. Lionel stepped closer. "I wasn't about to let you burn up in there. Not today."
The man held his stare, slow and intentional. "I'm glad it was you. Anybody else? I would have been scared." Lionel's eyes dropped for a second, the weight between them growing way too obvious. Jordan suddenly shouted, "Lionel, we're packing up!" Loud, sharp, and way more emotional than the situation called for. Lionel didn't flinch. He just turned back to the man. "This isn't over." "So you're planning to see me again?" the man said, smiling like he already knew the answer. Lionel's grin confirmed it. "Oh, I'm planning more than that." Back at the station, the mood shifted. The exhaustion settled. The crew cleaned gear and wiped down the truck. Jordan stayed quiet, working through movements like he was trying to burn thoughts out of his muscles. Lionel floated around on adrenaline, replaying the app guy's face, his voice, the spark between them. Jordan finally asked, trying to keep it neutral. "So, that guy from the gym, you matching with every man in the city now?"
Lionel laughed. "Only the good-looking ones." Jordan's jaw ticked.
Later that evening, the chief walked into the bay with a clipboard and a grin that Lionel had never seen on him. "Harper," he said, "front and center."
Lionel stepped forward, wiping his hands on his turnout pants. The chief raised his voice so the whole station could hear. "As of today, you're officially being promoted. You earned it." The room erupted. Claps, whistles, the kind of pride that warmed every inch of the space. Jordan clapped too, smiling big, congratulating him with everyone else. But under the applause, underneath the sound, something in him folded, quiet and private.
He had planned to pull Lionel aside tonight, planned to finally take the chance he'd been avoiding. He swallowed it down as Lionel hugged him, all bright grin and effortless charm. "Proud of you," Jordan said softly. Lionel squeezed his shoulder. "It means a lot coming from you." Jordan nodded again. "Too fast." "Yeah, of course." Lionel pulled away, already swept into the group celebrating him. Jordan stayed where he was, alone for a second, watching Lionel smile from across the room. He was happy for him. He really was.
But something new had started burning in the back of his mind. Something he wasn't ready to name. Something he wasn't sure he could stop. Lionel has been living wild, messy, and unapologetically free, bouncing from hookups to heroics, and leaving a trail of flustered men behind him. Jordan, his closest friend on the squad, has been quietly unraveling as his straight identity cracks under a growing, undeniable attraction to Lionel. Each call, each flirtation, each rescued man only intensifies Jordan's jealousy and confusion. And now, with Lionel ready to see the guy he saved at the gym, Jordan finally reaches a breaking point, one he can't hide anymore. Jordan didn't plan on seeing it. He was just grabbing his gloves off the bench when he heard Lionel laughing. That low, warm laugh he always tried not to react to. He glanced over and saw the new EMT leaning in close to Lionel, touching his arm, a lingering touch that was entirely too friendly for someone who'd only been here 3 days. Lionel didn't pull back. Of course he didn't. He leaned in with that easy confidence, smiling like he had all the time in the world for this man's attention. Jordan felt something sharp twist low in his stomach. Jealousy or irritation? He didn't know, and he didn't have time to name it. His pulse jumped, loud enough to hear over the background noise of the firehouse. He turned away too fast, heading for the engine bay like he'd just walked in on something he wasn't supposed to see. He stood behind the engine, hands braced on the cool metal, breath uneven. His heart shouldn't have been racing. It made no sense. Lionel flirted with everyone. That's who he was, who he'd always been. But lately, Jordan couldn't shake how it made him feel. He squeezed his eyes shut, and without warning, he slipped back into the memory that started everything. It was months ago. Lionel came out of the locker room after a late-night call, towel slung low around his waist, steam still clinging to his skin, humming like the world existed just to make him comfortable. Jordan remembered freezing, just for a second. Something about the way Lionel moved, easy, unbothered, confident in the kind of masculinity that had softness tucked inside it, hit him sideways. He looked away fast that night and pretended it never happened. That worked for a while. It didn't work at all anymore. Jordan stared at the ground now, palms warm, pulse stubborn. He tried to breathe past whatever this was, but every inhale brought him back to the same truth. He was drawn to Lionel. Drawn in a way he didn't have language for. Drawn in a way that scared him. Lionel was the kind of man who didn't apologize for who he was. A man who laughed loud, flirted loud, lived loud, and somehow never lost his grounding. Masculine and feminine without contradiction. Confident without trying. Free without asking permission. Jordan admired that freedom, wanted it, wanted him. But wanting Lionel meant accepting something else, something bigger. Jordan wasn't straight. Not anymore. Maybe he never was. He swallowed hard, still standing in the bay, still trying to collect himself when he heard Lionel's voice behind him. "Jordan, you okay?" Jordan turned, careful to keep his face neutral. "Yeah, I'm fine." Lionel nodded, scrolling through his phone. His smile bloomed slowly. Jordan hated how much he loved that smile. He hated even more that it wasn't for him. Lionel exhaled sharply and showed Jordan the screen without thinking. A message thread. A name Jordan recognized immediately. The guy from the fire-burning gym. "Man said he wants to see me tonight," Lionel said with that grin that always hit Jordan dead center. Apparently getting rescued is a major turn-on. Who knew? Jordan's stomach dropped. He covered it with a tight nod. Jordan wanted to be happy for him. But he wasn't. He imagined for a second, just a second, what it would feel like to ask Lionel out. One drink after their shift, one slow conversation. One night where they weren't surrounded by alarms and smoke and noise. Just the two of them. He imagined Lionel saying yes. He imagined the possibility of something real. The fantasy hit him so hard he had to look away. Lionel slid his phone into his back pocket, completely oblivious to Jordan's thoughts right now. I should probably shower and make myself presentable, right? Jordan shrugged, voice flat. You always are. Lionel grinned again, and Jordan felt another sting low in his chest. Jealousy, desire, something tangled between them he couldn't label exactly. The rest of the shift moved slowly. Jordan kept busy. He kept his distance. He kept pretending. But every time Lionel moved, every time Lionel laughed, every time Lionel looked at someone who wasn't him, it pressed against the truth he'd been wrestling alone. By the time the sun slipped behind the station windows, Jordan couldn't take it anymore. Lionel stepped into the quiet truck bay to grab a charger from his locker. Jordan followed before he could talk himself out of it. Hey, Lionel. Lionel turned, smile in place, the smile that always undid him. Yeah, man. What's up? Jordan's throat went tight. His hands shook. Everything inside him felt like a building seconds away from collapse. I need to tell you something. The words hung heavy in the space between them. Thank you for listening to Stories Between Us Anthology. You can find every episode on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Rate the show and leave a comment. It helps more people find us.